Welcome back to my channel Celebuzz. Please share and subscribe and press the bell icon for new updates. The most recent update came to us from Good Day. A first for Latin America, Pope Francis. The Roman Catholic Church's American Pope Church has passed away. Not many were aware that despite being wheelchair-bound and afflicted with severe lung infections, the apostolic mission persisted, driven by a strong sense of purpose. Considering his unforeseen all the way up until Cardinal, the initial breach of Luis Antonio Tagle's posthumous quietness, this represents the poignant and impactful tale of Pope of the one and only years. A place of worship in mourning. The shocking revelations, the unexpected passing of Pope Francis on Saturday, 2025. Not only did he head up the Catholic Church in addition to renowned over the globe for his love, modesty, and tenderness toward those on low incomes and at a disadvantage, coming from a long line of Southeast Asia, and the first Jesuit to as charge of the Catholic Church, Pope Francis conventional forms. Above anything else, he resonated with countless individuals through his living a basic life and constantly trying to turn the church into a warm and inviting spot for every corner of the globe, starting with the executives of communicate with regular citizens, lamented their loss and serious my deep appreciation. Condolences were received from all throughout the world. The rise of social media, inundated with comments that brought back memories of his day's family history. Special masses were given by churches and hoisted their flags in respect. Even speakers from faiths other than Christianity expressed their admiration, acknowledging the Pope as a mediator and broker of peace. Perceptions of it was a heavy Vatican, regarding a large number of elderly religious authorities, URL, https:// and www.youtube.com, watch=7pope. Francis is more than simply a QBHDCQ0 esteemed spiritual guide and revered friend and father. Among the most notable personalities at the Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle is currently serving as a significant role in the Church. He has a famous due to his kind nature, brilliant mind, and profound belief. Staying in close proximity to Pope, a longtime friend of Francis's, Tagle is regarded as a close associate of his loved ones. As a result, anytime the Vatican delivered the devastating news of the Pope's during his tenure, Cardinal Tagle. Many were curious about his plans. The case? How would he put his emotions into words? Catholics on a global scale, particularly throughout Asia, particularly in the Philippines, eagerly anticipated what he would say. Throughout the beginning, he decided to stay mute, and the muteness only grew in that looking forward. It was common knowledge when unless Cardinal Tagle intervened, there would be no maid in a hurry. A new vocabulary would emerge with genuine emotions and thoughtful contemplation. His lack of response was expected. The Tagle has maintained an observant and considerate individual, particularly in deeply moving experiences. His entire life, he has avoided to converse for the purpose of conversing. This authenticity is what has led to a great deal of his admirers hold him in high esteem due to his for both his career and his personal life. And the next step is now that he has spoken everything. All eyes are on you. What he says does not just a memorial to a magnificent Pope, but also the start of an exciting new adventure. For what? What Cardinal Tagle said was more than just a nod to the past, while also foreshadowing what lies ahead for the Church influential people and the multitudes of adherents who are trying to find some sort of light amidst a decline. An exciting new chapter is about to begin part, and what Cardinal Tagle actually said is eventually serving as a guide for everybody. Pope Francis embarked on an extraordinary adventure when he was young and the world had unfamiliar with his name. Mario Jose Jorge. As a young lad, Bergoglio lived in the Flores area of Buenos Aires. On the 17th of December 1936, of his 5 siblings, Jorge was the firstborn. The accountant Mario was his father, were Italian immigrants, and his mother in her own country, Regina, worked as a homemaker. Region of northern Italy. The Bergoglios were abandoned Italy in 1929 in a bid to evade Mussolini's regime, hoping for a more liberated existence in Buenos Aires. Jorge had a straightforward youth, without airs. He was a student at local Roman Catholic institutions, and attended a technical high school and graduated with a background in chemical engineering. During that time, Jorge was employed by a number of trades ranging from cleaning top fryer to securing employment in a laboratory that is sponsored by a lady called Esther, everyone knows Balestrino. In his 20s, Jorge overcame a significant obstacle, a serious case of pneumonitis necessitating drainage of disease, affecting a portion of his lung, would accompany him during his life. But the true tipping moment arrived one day as Jorge made his way attend a spring celebration. While traveling, he came to a place of worship to wash away his transgressions. That very second bestowed upon him a whole different course of action in life. Because of this, he chose to seek ordination as a priest. When Jorge became a member of the Josephite order, the Community of Jesus, as a beginner, it was proceeded with his studies in philosophy in Argentine soil, Chile, and then back to the fields of psychology and literature. And that's when Jorge spent his formative years in a devout struggle within as well. He was clean about his crush on about a girl, and momentarily considered if he truly belonged in the clergy. Back in 1969, a priesthood was bestowed upon Jorge. Additionally, many years down the road in 1973, he finally oaths taken by a practicing Jesuit. Also in that year, he was chosen to serve as the superior of the province Puritans in Buenos Aires. Despite his encouragement of timeless ideals of hands-on ministry dedication, his unique approach to the leadership did not consistently work together alongside his fellow believers. Once upon a time he was asked to step down and demoted to "I will be studying in Germany," but he came back nevertheless, back to Argentina before finishing education, while maintaining a full-time position in secret positions. Throughout his life, he serving in a spiritual capacity as a confessor, the filmmaker, and his profound religiosity drew in the interest of religious authorities. An auxiliary bishop was his official title in 1992, from Buenos Aires, and worked their way up to climb the ranks to archbishop. He achieved the status of well-known as the Bishop of Slums because of his never-ending dedication to helping the city's most impoverished areas. Regularly, he would stroll through the shantytowns and villas, installing himself among the impoverished to distribute and back them up. Bergoglio was also notable because of his dedication to change. It was supervised and oversaw the archdiocese, money to settle the accounts, and heavily took on the past issues faced by the Argentinian church, had a hand in, particularly during a regime governed by armed force. He didn't hesitate to challenge those in charge, was a fierce advocate for the downtrodden, and was eager to participate in conversations regarding touchy subjects. On January 11, 2001, Pope John, he was elevated to the rank of cardinal by Pope Paul II. Even though had additional duties, he upheld and simplicity of living, choose to reside in a small flat instead of a lavish estate, and to take the Byzantine place of his personal vehicle. In his preparation for independent dining, and shunned the limelight to a maximum extent. Under his humility, he painstakingly established a solid honor due to his modesty, his conservative beliefs, as well as his fervent dedication to fairness. Following that, after Pope John Paul II passed away in 2005, it was almost as if Bergoglio were succeeding Cardinal as Pope Ratzinger, who subsequently served as Pope, the 16th installment of Benedict I. When Bergoglio proposed to demit the office of Archbishop in 2011, despite his ongoing commitment to serving in position until a replacement is selected. Having come from a working-class family of Buenos Aires, he has achieved the status of an extremely powerful figure in the Church's place of worship. Growing up, Pope Francis was blended with unwavering commitment. In his travels to the Vatican were prompted by simply via his deep devotion to spirituality, but coupled with his exceptional capacity to establish, with regular folks, an attribute he possesses upheld during his time as Pope. At the time, in 2013, Francis became Pope. Despite being he was still in acceptable health at the age of 76 health. While he did have a lung extracted while still a young man because of an illness, medical professionals announced that it was unsuccessful, considerably impact his general well-being. It would be most dangerous if he become infected with pneumonia, leading to act with greater gravity than the typical person. But eventually, and his health, particularly in his later years, started to fall. On the Pope, Francis faced greater challenges in the 2020s in the midst of flu season and respiratory illness. Furthermore, issues with the knees, both back pain and sciatica, which made it hard for him to move about. It was eventually become wheelchair-bound cane or walker to get about town events. By the year 2021, his physical state became a hotly debated subject. A lot of people thought he would pass away as a result of health issues, although Pope in his denial, Francis maintained that he had no plans to do so. Regardless, in June of 2022, he had no choice but to delay scheduled stops at the Democratic South Sudan's Republic of the Congo as a result of knee injury therapy. On one occasion, the information that if he becomes sick again, gave him permission to keep running on his way out of the church. However, when at that moment, surrendering was not regarding which he felt on the subject. March 2023 saw Pope Francis's inauguration, admitted to the hospital due to a breathing infection, and thankfully, he got well, swiftly, and made it back in time to take the helm during April's Easter Vigil Mass. But then, in the following months, he had abdominal surgery in June to cure a hernia hole. At this period, Pope's wheelchair was first utilized by Francis at engagements in public owing to chronic knee pain. Despite a decrease in his work pace, on the other hand, the Catholic group, particularly individuals who are impairments, in light of his candor, and I worry about his well-being. On February 16th, the situation worsened in 2025. Pope Francis was in Rome on Valentine's Day, landed in Rome's GLI hospital due to bronchitis. At first, his health was deemed minor. However, it rapidly deteriorated further. His doctors gave him a diagnosis of lung infection caused by many microorganisms, caused pneumonia in both lungs. His seriousness of the situation was deemed paramount. It was needed transfusions of blood and elevated oxygen flow assistance. After only a few days, his medical team said that he was exhibiting precursors to renal failure. Regardless of professionals, thought his illness might be managed. Events began to move in when he endured more severe symptoms on February 28th, had a bronchospasm, and breathed in his stomach, necessitating the use of a respirator that does not require invasive surgery. His health temporarily improved before falling back into old habits, necessitating his reinstatement to respiratory support device. Mid-March was the latest it started to happen with Pope Francis's health level out. The infection was indeed verified by doctors to be managed, and he was formally received their March discharge from the hospital, April 23rd. Not long after stepping foot in, when he stood on the balcony of the hospital sending good vibes to all who have gathered outside. His Holiness, Pope Francis should keep on relaxing and getting well for at least 2 months while keeping a lower speed of work. On his first public appearance, the Pope presentation following his extensive hospital remaining on April 6th, indicating his getting better and his will to start his ministry. Do you know Luis Antonio? Where is Tagle? Luis Antonio Tagle, Cardinal, adored by all who meet him, is esteemed member of the Catholic faith, famous for his intense religious devotion, modesty, and a strong dedication to social equitable treatment. On June 21, 1957, he entered this world, situated near Imus, Cavite, Philippines, across a faith-based multicultural household. In his dad, Manuel Tagle, is a native Tagalog speaker, and Maam, Magros Gokim, hails from the Philippines, and ancestry from China. Working for Tagle in the service started in 1982 when he was appointed a minister. He persisted with his, whilst enrolled at the Catholic University of American soil, where he got a PhD in hallowed religion and gained renown for, he accomplished exceptionally well. Passionate in the areas of education and theology, he lectured at various seminaries and took part throughout the process of writing vital church documents encompassing the past and present of the Council of the Vatican. This man was made Bishop of Imus, a position in which he lived a humble life while serving for 10 years, his life and spending time with his community members. His empathy and toleration were perceived as profoundly introspective, with the pastoral character of Pope Francis. In 2007-2011, he served as the Archbishop of Manila, a city that has been profoundly roles within the church in the Philippines. In his permeated every aspect of society. During the year 2012, Pope Benedict XVI appointed him cardinal. I was appointed prefect after finishing 16th in the congregation's pursuit of persuasion of communities. This position involves catapulted him to the role of Vatican, particularly in international spreading the word. Known as the Francis des Agentes, Tagle have several characteristics with the care that Pope Francis has for the low income, to his ambition to construct a greater worldwide congregation, the magnetic personality, wisdom from the Bible, and a perspective on the world. Many people see him as a powerful hopeful for the position of Pope. Although there are criticism regarding his managerial duties over his tenure at Caritas Globalism, his reputation as a concernist and ardent and committed leader. With an eye on what is beyond a word from Cardinal Tagle, Pope Francis and top executives are generally thought to offer a fresh course of action aided by empathy, modesty, and profound affection in relation to gospel. The connection between, along with Pope Francis, Cardinal Tagle is internal and transcendental. They failed to people who were both friends and contemporaries with the hope of a less arrogant, Christ-centered, sympathetic, and welcoming place of worship. Right from the start, Pope Francis saw a similar spirit in Tagle. Individual who personified the principles that were important to them both. Submitting oneself, caring for society's underprivileged, promoting equality, and a compassionate method, faith. Since its inception, the Filipino cardinal has grown into beloved by many for his kindness, humility, the capacity to connect with individuals. Similarly to the Pope, Tagle has assumed the mansion lifestyle, going ahead and interacting with the impoverished, and to clarify the teachings of sanctuary in a soothing, straightforward manner way. That being said, it should come as no surprise that Pope Francis has given him a lot of vital responsibilities in the popery. In November 2019, the Holy Father nominated, with Cardinal Tagle, at the helm of the gathering for the proclamation of individuals, among the most crucial responsibilities within the Church, particularly in worldwide service to others. Being led by someone Asia assumes this role in addition to expresses the confidence of Pope Francis, although both demonstrates that Tagle has the potential to influence Church across the world. May 2020, even Pope Francis elevated him to the position of in the hierarchy of bishops at the pinnacle status within the Cardinals' Council. Thean esteemed position, delivering area-assuring word from the Pope with Tagle, who is a major player in a diocesan member, who is simultaneously pivotal role in the destiny of the Church leadership. Remarkably remarkable. Certain points in their romance arrived when during Pope Francis's 2015 visit to the Philippines, Archbishop Tagle welcomed him with affection and delight. When they were paired together, went to a number of public functions, one of which was held in Luneta Park in Manila, the land of countless Filipinos gathered. Both of them were in charge of the ritual, and during his oration, Cardinal Tagle was quite appreciative of Pope Francis for his role as a father figure whose faith and comprehends the ups and downs from the impoverished. A moving scene unfolded, highlighting the shared aspects of trust and a love that extends to everyone. His connection to Pope Francis with Cardinal Tagle being one of reverence and intimacy on a spiritual level. Although Pope has been supportive of Tagle's career. Not only that, but he has also communicated the vision of the Pope across Asia and the rest of the globe. They have emerged as a powerful leadership team, bringing to the attention of Catholics everywhere in order for leaders to start off on the right foot, dedication, compassion, and service. At the time when Francis passed away, Cardinal Tagle was left behind, quiet for a few days, doing nothing. Pronouncements made in public. There was no shortage of concerning, but instead, mirrors his heart's profound melancholy. A son, who was an aide to the Pope on the same page, the tragedy was keyed intimate with him. Assuming Cardinal at long last, Tagle spoke, and what he said was moving and sincere. He mentioned Pope Francis as a devout follower of Christ and an inspiration to countless others. The things he said were experiencing profound sadness, as well as honoring the legacy and purpose of the head of state. He appeared to be in a state of awe, appreciation, and an impassioned plea to keep up the initiative that Pope Francis started. As he reflected on, Cardinal Tagle stressed in his address the significance of charity and solidarity, appealing to the faithful to persist in continues, to uphold the teachings of Pope Francis, loving those in need, promoting harmony, and adhering to the principles outlined in the Gospel. His speech moved numerous people, acting as simultaneously honoring the late Pope's life and shining example of hope for the house of worship. The remarks of Cardinal Tagle prompted a global perspective on the enduring impact that the pontificate of Pope Francis is over. Additionally, they emphasize the significance of religious authorities and believers in continuing to support Pope Francis's goal of a compassionate and welcoming church. During those sorrow, the words of Cardinal Tagle provided ease and a sense of security in everyday goal for the body of Christ worshippers. What he'll do for the Church's destiny rises to even more prominence in light of Pope Francis's departure. As the head of the Catholic, a new period of contemplation begins in the Church, and anticipated outcome. Some of the people running for Charles Antonio Cardinal Luis, who succeeded him, Filipino Tagle, is distinctive. Most people know Cardinal Tagle as Asia's Francis, has a lot in common within his relationship with the late Pope Francis: self-sacrifice, altruism, and serving the underprivileged and oppressed. Having grown up in a rural area and strong dedication to spreading the gospel, he is quite the Church's revered leader. In 2019 saw the appointment of Cardinal Tagle in the role of Congregation toward the Propagation of the Faith, an essential role responsible for supervising abroad missionaries' work. Drawing from his time as Archbishop in Manila and his views on the world stage, his abilities have been demonstrated. The Church's leader. Viewers state, in the event that Cardinal Tagle is chosen as Pope, it is going to be a watershed moment, because it will hold the position of head of the Roman Catholic Church. His ancestral background, with an in-depth familiarity of multicultural neighborhoods, may breathe fresh vitality into the Pope. Having said that, struggles, such as his advanced age of 67 and ecclesiastical politics, while some may argue that Cardinal, the mild leadership style of Tagle, modesty, and unwavering devotion to Pope with his vision, Francis becomes a potential hopeful for the position of Pope. In light of the fact that approaching the conclave, Cardinal, the name Tagle is prominently displayed on Hub of Interest, standing for perhaps carrying on with the pastoral approach to leadership that is both inclusive and in Francis's oral accompaniment demonstrated. After the death of Pope Francis, Pope John Paul II made his way into the mentioned the vacante era. During this time from a pope's demise to the choosing a new leader. When this throughout that time, a large number of the papal paused in order to set the stage for the change within the church. The ancient Roman Curia, the executive branch of the claimed Holy See, was placed on pause, principals from most departments ceased performing their duties, making sure that there are no big decision-making took place during the Pope's not being present. Nevertheless, as a result of continued to be there to guarantee vital responsibilities persisted. Cardinal, as an example, Kevin Farrell, who has recently started leading routine activities of the Vatican, is answerable for confirming the Pope's parishment, protecting the papal rooms, as well as getting ready for the conclave. Its time frame can potentially lead to stress within. Several communities may coexist in the Curian order to have any say in choosing Pope-elect. The lack of a primary positions of power, like the Pope's, can cause instability and fights for power, while various groups adhere to their prospective employees and strategies for the place of worship. In this time frame, the Cardinals' Council for Cardinals younger than 80 years old performs an important function. Together they'll host a meeting to choose a new pope, determining the church's trajectory in the midst of throughout this time of change. On most occasions between 15 and 20 days following a pope's demise, giving competent individuals sufficient time attendees to congregate in Rome, in which the cardinals are kept apart, inside the Holy See, most especially, in the secret meeting place to prevent prying eyes environmental factors. Along with voting every day, a majority vote of 2 to 3 is needed to choose their place as the Pope. We are still in the middle of it, until a mutually agreeable conclusion is reached, in conjunction with Habamus's public announcement, "Dear Papa, the Pope has been elected." On the debates regarding the papacy of Francis Luis Antonio Tagle, who succeeds him, it has become a prominent frontrunner in the race. In his modesty, pastoral approach to leading, and robust backing of the vision of Pope Francis Tagle, is highly esteemed in support. Background of Tagle, especially in his capacity as military prefect of the Assembly for the Proclamation of Individuals, demonstrates his dedication to his worldwide goals and his missionary labor. His long history of involvement with the changes by the Pope, who elevated him to the position of link between traditionalists and influential churches that are moving forward. The leadership style of Tagle was centered around empathy and welcoming all individuals has won over a sizable number of birds that are enthusiastic about carrying on advance the church's course in the following decade. With the conclave taking place, the impact of Tagle and the backing of the success of his fellow cardinals depends on determining who would head the Roman Catholic Church. Throughout this time, a Vatican confronts difficulties during transition as well as fantastic chances to influence down the road. The choices reached during the upcoming weeks will have a significant impact on the leadership roles within the churches, Cardinal Tagle presiding over the procession. As a result of Pope Francis's vision, numerous see Tagle as an example to follow guiding the Catholic Church towards progress. The Francis of Asia, as Tagle is known, has similar priorities and beliefs that have defined the pontiff's due, the pontificating. A powerful advocate for those in need, those who have migrated, and those who are particularly susceptible to harm. A lifelong believer in social fairness and humanitarian initiatives by way of through his work with groups like CARA's was Go Global. During Cardinal Tagle's personally disclosed, he has consistently highlighted the significance of locating the presence of the gospel on earth in relation to those without means. In the wake of Pope Francis's dream of a little church serving the humble, humbleness shapes Tagle's theology, kindness, and empathy. He frequently uses his sermons to discuss contemporary concerns, rallying Christians to confront the challenges of life as they go about their day, loving and wise. As he reflected on projects like Tagle and Expose It Not, only studies the Bible, but also describes how the meanings conveyed by them can, when applied to the modern world, producing viewers knowledge and insight. When it comes to the Church's need for reform, Tagle possesses the ability to carrying on the forward momentum that the Pope has elaborated. In his method of leading that prioritizes attention instead of dogmatic inflexibility, and he is willing to talk about questions like women's place in church and minority outreach programs. While he'll definitely bring his own unique thoughts on the matter, the majority feel that his nomination following in the footsteps of Pope the Pope's endeavors to expand the Church and enhance its ability to cater to the requirements on behalf of believers everywhere. In sum, Cardinal Tagle's profound dedication to fairness in society, to caring theology, and harmony with because of his mission, Pope Francis is a prospective figurehead, capable of carrying forward the continued legacy of a friendlier and more compassionate Roman Catholic Church. Pope Francis's passing has triggered profound grief within the Catholic faith all across the globe, but notably in Asia, where there has been tremendous development for the Church since a while ago. For the Filipino people, the nation where the biggest Catholic people in Asia, the announcement of his demise conveyed an unexplainable sense of grief. Ferdinand Marcos Jr., the president, reached out to my favorite pope so far as Pope Francis throughout his life, demonstrating his modesty and empathy toward those in need. Ringing of church bells were heard all around Manila, as individuals prayed as a group reflecting on a former boss fondly known as Grandpa or Loquico. Hello, Francis. Holy Father Luis Antonio Tagle, one of the most senior officials in the Philippines religion, and a personal associate of the late Pope Francis, conveyed his profound sadness at passing away. In the aftermath of the Pope's, many people experienced profound feelings of loss. When he finally spoke up, though, his remarks moved many people to tears, an endless number those who believe. His eulogy was deeply emotional. Archbishop Tagle emphasized, Pope, the plight of the destitute, and his for a world church that is more equitable. In his words of wisdom consoled, and led the steadfast in the face of sorrow. For as a cardinal, Cardinal Tagle was also not just something to be proud of as a nation, but also represents optimism on what is ahead. His promotion to the position of Pope, comprising accepting the position of Bishop of Gathering for the proclamation of historically Asian peoples have been worldwide Catholic hierarchy. His profound familiarity with Asian traditions, in addition to his dedication to promoting equality, harmonized flawlessly with the vision of Pope Francis, which elevated him to the ranking of promising prospective employee. The Pope Tagle, Cardinal Luis Antonio's worldwide renown as a modest and as a kind leader has garnered him the Franciscan Friar of Asia. His tone, notably when advocating for the downtrodden and to overcome cultural differences, has reached Catholics all around the world, entire planet. While the congregation gets ready to make a potential heir to the papacy, numerous observers, Cardinal Tagle, as an example of influence in the hierarchy of the Church from Asia. At this juncture, Catholics in Asia, including the Philippines, religion, and its leaders provide solace and optimism. That is Cardinal Tagle. He is capable of carry on the work of Pope Francis, gives faith in a church's ability to endure, welcoming, sympathetic, and all-encompassing. The Pope Francis's death signifies the end of an era while grieving the loss of the global Catholic community. No less than the popes during their last years, they engaged in physical despite the agony. He had incredible fortitude. Still, despite a lung infection, knee issues, surgery, during an almost deadly hospital stay, he kept working, praying, and making appearances out in public, occasionally using a wheelchair or an orthopedic bed. He was an inspiration because of how he persevered. Many people, particularly those with disabilities community, who looked up to him as an example of respect and belief. At the same time that Pope Francis' death, Cardinal Tagle made a statement. As he reflected on initial statement to the public, he detailed the Pope, like a shepherd bearing his burden with grace and tolerance, and lauded his bravery, modesty, and compassion for everyone. Additionally, Cardinal Tagle brought up the popes in his latter weeks, when he was still spiritually empathetic and resilient in the face of significant discomfort. Pope Francis's demise concludes a remarkable pontificate that deviated from the norm, advocated pity, and drew the congregation nearer to the citizens. In the midst of global grief, the remarks of Cardinal Tagle are spot on, in line with what many people think to be true. In addition to his leadership roles, Pope Francis was a caring individual who devoted himself fully to he had trust.